glad to have you before the committee. I wanted to turn to TRIO. I wanted to echo Senator Collins' support, but I know you wanted accountability, and you think it would be a good idea to have each grantee have to have benchmarks that they're seeking to address?
I think that we do need to have better accountability with TRIO, but one of the things that I
so
said
having limited time, but benchmarks up front would be useful to have these programs meet?
Yes,
maybe have them do an annual report on meeting those benchmarks?
Accountabilities, yes, because we don't now
Great.
have the ability to track that.
So actually, those benchmarks are set now, and each grantee has to do an annual report. Have you read those annual reports?
I've not read them all, no.
Okay.
But I do know that they're not following all those different offices.
So,
and I've also said that if Congress...
Madam, just let me finish if I can. And that is that you said there was no accountability. I just pointed out that two of the things you'd like to see, which are benchmarks and annual performance reports, are already done. In addition, the Pell Institute published a recent summary of 4 of the studies the Department of Education did on 4 of these 8 TRIO programs. Have you looked at those reports? Because they did a thorough evaluation of these programs.
I have not personally, no.
Well, that bothers me for you to come before us today and say there needs to be accountability, and yet there is accountability, and it just seems like a cover story for saying we don't want to help blue-collar kids make it into college. And I must tell you, most of my colleagues here, they're not blue-collar kids. I am. I know how hard it was to make that leap into college. I know the difficulty of the culture when you grow up in high school and you never talk to anybody about going to college, and you don't understand what that's all about in that world. And these TRIO programs have resulted in 6 million students graduating through those programs. And you want accountability? Well, what did those studies say that have been done by the Department of Education? They said, upward bound students, twice as likely to earn a bachelor's degree. Talent search students, 33% more likely to enroll in college. Veterans, upward bound, 42% more likely. I'm going to go on to my next question, but let me just say, your argument that there's no studies, no accountability, is just actually wrong. And the fact that you're coming here not even having looked at your own department's studies of these programs in order to be informed about them is profoundly troubling. Let me turn to the cost of higher education. This is also very important to a blue-collar kid. Folks in my community today, because I still live in a blue-collar community, they say, we're not sure our kids should go to college because they'll end up with a millstone of mountain of debt and maybe no job. And here you are making it more expensive. I wonder if you know how much a student in Germany has to pay in tuition for university.
I don't.
It's 0. What about the broader European economic zone?
Sir, we don't live in Europe. We live
It is
in the
0.
United
But my
States.
point here is those countries are saying we want every child to thrive. We want every child to have opportunity. We don't want them to be saying our kids, maybe we should tell them not to go to college because they'll have this mountain of debt. And that opportunity, that's American values of opportunity for every individual. And here you are raising the cost of college, making it much harder for ordinary kids from blue-collar backgrounds to be able to pursue their dreams. And I find that totally inconsistent with Trump's campaign, where he said he would fight for ordinary families.
No, I have to disagree, sir. We're not raising the cost of college. We are actually, with all of the programs that we want to put in place, we want colleges to reduce their cost.
Well, actually, these loan programs that you're changing are making it much more expensive for kids to go to college, and they're getting
We've
the
not
message.
changed loan programs.
I'm going to turn to mental health because I'm very concerned about mental health. A few years ago, before COVID, when I was in a meeting with student counselors in Eastern Oregon, a very rural area, and they said, you know, we're seeing kids come in our early ages, and they're acting out much more than they ever did before. And I said, well, is this because was there a factory that just shut down here, or a mill that just shut down, or an infusion of wave of meth? And they said, no, those are all, the economy's a factor, drug use is a factor in our community. But no, those aren't new. And one of the counselors said, this is what's new. And they pulled out their cell phone. This is what's new. Kids are coming in with far less understanding and ability of how to sit in a collaborative environment like a classroom and how to communicate with other children and teachers. There is a book that just came out. My staff happened to put it on my desk this morning. So I'm going to ask for Chapter 5 to be put into the record, The Anxious Generation. And I was paging through it, and under Chapter 5, it notes that there are 4 factors in which these cell phones are affecting our children profoundly: social deprivation, sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation, and screen addiction. I'd really encourage you to take a look at this. I've been urging the department to seriously look at the issue of how childhood is changing. And childhood is changing because of technology in ways that are really compromising the ability of our education enterprise to work well. But this brings to my point about why you have canceled mental health grants for our schools. We have 5 schools in Oregon that got grants to have more mental health counselors, and you have canceled them. Why have you canceled mental health grants in the middle of a enormously challenging time for our students?
We've not canceled mental health grants. We've said we're not continuing them after this year because we're going to allow those programs to be rebid and to take a different look at them, but they have not been canceled. And I couldn't agree with you more about cell phones. There's governors of several states who have said bell to bell there are not going to be cell phones in the classroom, and they are seeing upticks in their literacy and also in the social interaction. So therefore, states have the abilities at very different levels to go ahead and make decisions and to put their policies in place that can be effective.
Then the 5 grants that you have canceled that you are unaware of in Oregon, you will restore those 5 grants?
We've not canceled. We're not continuing those grants.
So if you discover that you have actually canceled grants that were already awarded, you will undo those cancellations?
I would like to get back to you on that. I do not believe we've canceled any grants. We're not continuing, but we will rebid them.
Well, you'll rebid them, meaning you're canceling them, but you'll rebid them.
We are not continuing them. We haven't canceled them.
Okay, well,
They are continuing.
well, I've got 5 schools that have received letters from you or your department saying their grants, their mental health grants have been canceled. They worked very hard to apply for those
Canceled
grants.
or not continued.
That they've been canceled, the grants that they have received for their programs.
And I will look into that and get back to you.
Obviously, when you get a grant, it's for work you're doing from here forward. So if not continuing means as of today we're not funding it, then you canceled the grant.
No, you can rebid the grant, you can recompete the grant, and you can have different
Is that what you're doing?
aspects of it.
You said the grants you got, we're ending them and we're taking them back, but we're going to
I said we
recompete them?
are not continuing them after this year. We will have a rebidding process to relook at those grants.
Well, I
to do it
strongly
responsibly.
encourage you to understand how the changes you're making are hurting ordinary kids across this country who may have aspirations, and those aspirations may not all require going to college, but many of those aspirations can be well served by higher education, and you shouldn't be putting obstacles in their path.
Thank you.
Senator Merkley, if you look,